My name is Marilyn J. Bennett, and I am 31 years old. 4 days before my sister's wedding, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my bank. I thought it was fraud at first, the boring kind, someone testing a stolen card or trying to open a line of credit. I'd had that happen once before, but when I logged into my account, still half asleep, the number on the screen didn't look like a mistake. $13,642. Gone. Not pending, not frozen, not flagged. Just gone. I sat there in bed staring at the screen, convinced for a few seconds that I was somehow logged into the wrong account. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to accept that it was real. When I pulled up the transaction history, my stomach dropped. The receiving account name wasn't unfamiliar. It was painfully familiar. Tessa Lyons, my sister. The only reason she even had access was because of our parents. Years ago, when our grandparents set up the trust for us, my parents insisted both daughters should have access, just in case. I was 19 then, and didn't question it. I wasn't thinking about future betrayals or weddings or stolen money. I never removed her access because I never imagined I'd need to. I called her. She didn't answer. I texted once, just one line, telling her she needed to call me. 10 minutes later, she did, sounding more annoyed than worried. I told her the money was gone. She didn't deny it. She said I was being dramatic and that it was family money anyway, that I should be happy for her. In the background, I heard Austin laugh. He actually laughed and said they deserved nice things. I hung up without saying another word. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't demand the money back. I just sat there staring at the wall while everything rearranged itself in my head. Because what they didn't know, what none of them ever acknowledged out loud, was that I was the one paying for almost every part of that wedding. The venue deposit, the catering, the photographer, the flowers, the music, the guest welcome bags. All of it was under my name. All of it was funded quietly, while Tessa played the role of beloved bride and let everyone assume our parents were covering the costs. That night, instead of confronting anyone, I opened my laptop and started canceling things. I didn't sleep much that night, but I wasn't restless either. There's a difference between anxiety and clarity. And what I felt was the second one, the kind that settles in quietly and doesn't ask permission. Around midnight, I made a list, not because I needed help remembering, but because writing it down made it final. Venue, catering, florist, photographer, music, hotel blocks, transportation. Every line item had my name on it. Every contract tied back to my email and my card. I'd done it that way deliberately months ago, partly because I didn't want to chase anyone for money, partly because control felt safer than trust. The venue was first. I logged into the portal and requested cancellation. The balance wasn't due until the day before the event, and the deposit was still refundable. It took less than 5 minutes. The screen refreshed and the date disappeared. No more October 12th. No more ceremony space. Just an empty calendar slot waiting for someone else's celebration. The catering company was next. I'd paid the full amount up front to simplify things, and they were surprised but professional. They asked if everything was okay. I said plans had changed. They processed the refund without questions. The florist sounded disappointed but understanding. The photographer actually sounded relieved and told me he already had another couple hoping the date would open up. The hotel rooms were released in bulk, and the transportation company confirmed the cancellation with a short, polite email. By 1 a.m, there was no wedding. No location, no food, no flowers, no music, no guests, no backup plan. And no one else knew yet. Tessa was still posting on Instagram like nothing had changed. Glittery boomerangs of her wedding shoes. A countdown story saying, 4 days to forever. Our mom reposted every single one, adding heart emojis and comments about her baby girl. I watched it all in silence. It felt surreal, like standing in a room while the walls are quietly being dismantled behind the scenes. The next 2 days passed in a strange calm. Tessa didn't call me again. She probably thought I'd accepted it, that I'd gotten over my dramatic moment. That's how things usually went. I was always the one who cooled off first, who smoothed things over, who paid and moved on. I went to work, I answered emails, I smiled at coworkers. No one could tell anything was wrong, and that was the point. Then Thursday came. The rehearsal was scheduled for that morning. Everyone was supposed to meet at the venue around 10, walk through the ceremony, then head to a big family brunch downtown. It was meant to be a whole production. our extended relatives, Austin's groomsmen, childhood neighbors, a public display of how perfect everything was supposed to be. I already knew how it would go because 2 days earlier I'd called the venue and asked them to change the door code. The signage had been removed. The staff was off-site. The parking gate was locked. Just a quiet, empty building waiting for someone else. I heard later that Tessa showed up in a white romper with a mimosa in hand, smiling like she expected applause. She stood outside in heels while our mom kept calling numbers that went straight to voicemail. Austin apparently went from smirking to completely silent. He doesn't like looking unimportant. When it finally sank in that this wasn't a misunderstanding, the panic started. That's when the calls began. Tessa first, then our mom, then our dad. Even Austin once. My phone lit up constantly. Missed calls, texts asking what was happening, demands to explain. I didn't answer a single one. They thought silence meant hesitation. It didn't. Silence meant I was done explaining myself to people who never asked permission in the first place. By that evening, the entire family knew something was wrong. Guests were confused. Plans were unraveling. And for the first time in my life, I let it all happen without stepping in to fix it. Because fixing it would have meant pretending nothing was stolen. Pretending betrayal was acceptable if it came wrapped in the word family. And I wasn't doing that anymore. The calls didn't stop for 2 full days. They came in waves, like someone kept pressing refresh on a panic button. Tessa, Mom, Dad, Austin once, which was new. I let them ring. I wasn't in the mood to be gaslit into believing I'd overreacted, or worse, guilted into paying for it all again, so everyone could pretend the theft never happened. Silence made them uncomfortable, and I was done making myself uncomfortable so they could feel better. On the 3rd day, Mom showed up at my condo without warning. She used the emergency key, the one I forgot to take back years ago because I never imagined I'd need to protect myself from my own family. I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table like she belonged there, purse neatly placed beside her chair, eyes already filled with rehearsed concern. She started talking before I could say a word. Tessa was devastated. The wedding was off track. Guests were confused. Vendors weren't answering. She kept using words like misunderstanding and overreaction, like repeating them might make them true. I waited. I kept waiting for her to ask me what happened, to ask why I was hurt, to ask if I was okay. She never did. Instead, she asked when I was going to fix it. Not if, when. That was when I asked her one question. Just one. Did you know she was going to take that money? She paused. Not long, just long enough to tell the truth without saying it out loud. Then she said they thought I'd be okay with it, because Tessa didn't have enough and the wedding was important. She said she's my sister, right, like that settled it. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there until she stopped talking and realized from my face that something fundamental had shifted. She left quietly after that, without a hug, without an apology. That night, Dad called. He tried a softer approach at first, said everyone was under a lot of stress, that Tessa didn't mean any harm. Then he added, almost like a joke, that Austin had offered to write me a check once they got back on their feet, as if that made it better. As if stealing first and offering repayment later counted as character. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The next morning, I sent one message to our immediate family. Mom, Dad, Tessa, Austin, no emojis, no explanation. Let's meet at Grandma and Grandpa's tomorrow, noon. Our grandparents had been quiet through all of this. They're the ones who funded the original trust when we were teenagers. Old school values, earn what you keep. They loved us, but they didn't hand things out freely. Calling a meeting there meant something. It meant neutral ground. It meant Tessa wouldn't be able to spin the story. When I arrived, everyone was already there. Mom was pacing. Dad sat on the couch with his arms crossed. Austin wore sunglasses indoors like he was trying to hide. Tessa looked like she'd been crying, but no one was comforting her. She just sat there staring at the floor. Grandpa asked me to speak. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize it. I laid it out. Tessa took over $13,000 from a trust that didn't belong to her. Our parents knew and didn't stop her. I paid for every part of the wedding while everyone assumed it came from them. The wedding was canceled permanently. Tessa's access to the trust would be removed effective immediately. Austin finally took off his sunglasses like he wanted to argue, but even he knew better. Then Grandma did something none of us expected. She left the room and came back with a white envelope. She handed it to Tessa and said they'd planned to give it to her on her wedding day. Tessa opened it slowly, looked inside twice like something might magically appear. Then Grandma said, "If you want something in this life, you earn it. Not by stealing, not by lying, not by hiding behind other people's money." The room stayed silent. Austin stood up and left without saying a word. He didn't wait for Tessa, he just walked out. Mom tried to talk about rescheduling, about doing something smaller, about embarrassment in front of the neighbors. I didn't answer. I thanked my grandparents and left. It felt finished, but I knew the consequences were just beginning. The first 24 hours after the meeting were unnervingly quiet. No calls, no texts, no angry messages demanding I fix anything. It felt like the calm that settles after something breaks so completely that everyone needs time to decide which pieces are worth picking up. I didn't reach out either. I let the silence sit where it belonged. Then the unraveling started. The venue posted a simple thank you on Instagram for allowing them to release the October 12th date to another couple. It was tagged, public, impossible to miss. By noon, Tessa's profile was wiped clean. No countdowns, no dress fittings, no hashtag. Just one old photo of her and Austin on a boat, and a bio that read, "Taking time for myself." Our mom stopped reposting anything. Dad went quiet in the family group chat. People started asking questions. Extended family reached out first. A cousin in San Diego asked if it was true Tessa took the money. An aunt in Ohio wanted to know if she should cancel her flight. An old family friend messaged me privately to say she was sorry and that she'd always admired how I held things together. I didn't correct anyone publicly. I didn't defend myself. The truth was doing fine on its own. Vendors Tessa and Austin tried to rebook turned them down one by one. The venue was gone. The florist cited ethical concerns. The caterer said their calendar was suddenly full. I knew what that really meant. No one wanted to touch this again. Word travels fast when money and trust disappear at the same time. Then came the financial fallout. I heard through someone in Austin's circle that the joint account he and Tessa shared had closed abruptly. Apparently, he tried to put a deposit down on a rental property he'd been bragging about, only to find the balance wasn't there anymore. Without my money quietly padding everything, the numbers didn't work. He tried to borrow from a friend he'd already stiffed once. That friend said no. People remember. My parents tried again. Dad called and said family doesn't stay mad forever, that we should sit down and figure out how to heal. I told him this wasn't a grudge. It was a boundary. Mom sent a long email explaining they only wanted both daughters to feel supported, and that if they could go back, they'd do things differently. The tone was still wrong. More about embarrassment than betrayal. More about guests asking questions than the fact that their daughter stole from me. I didn't reply. Instead, I had the trust lawyer send formal letters. Tessa was officially removed. Safeguards were put in place. No one touches anything unless it comes through me. 3 days later, my grandparents invited me over for tea. They didn't lecture. They asked how I was holding up. I told them the truth. Tired, but clear-headed. Grandpa handed me a check for the full amount Tessa took and a little extra. I told him I didn't want it. He said I didn't let her take my future, and that mattered more than money, then told me to deposit it anyway in case she tried again. I did the next day, not because I needed it, but because I'd earned the right to protect myself. A week later, I got an email from HR. A formal complaint had been filed accusing me of unethical financial conduct. The sender was anonymous, but the attachments made it obvious who it was. Spliced screenshots, partial statements, my work email signature pasted into places it didn't belong. I work in finance. Reputation is everything. The irony was the evidence proved nothing. Compliance cleared it in 2 days and labeled it personal sabotage. My boss pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. That was the moment my anger turned cold. Tessa wasn't ashamed. She was retaliating. That Sunday, my grandparents hosted lunch. Everyone came. Tessa arrived looking composed, hair curled, white sweater, polite smile like nothing had happened. Austin wasn't there. Grandpa was quiet in a way that meant he knew something. After lunch, Grandma asked us to gather. She brought out a small box of family papers and opened it on the table. Inside were emails from Tessa sent the week before the wedding. She had asked Grandma for $15,000, claiming I'd promised to cover unexpected costs, and then backed out, that she needed to protect her dream. Grandma read her reply aloud. She had said no. She wrote that money should never come before honesty, and that if Tessa wanted a big wedding, she should wait until she could afford one herself. The date on the email matched the transfer date from my account. The room went silent. Grandpa leaned forward and said quietly that Tessa asked them for the money before she ever took mine. Tessa tried to deny it, but Grandma placed the transfer record on the table. Even Mom didn't defend her. Then Grandpa revealed the second piece. Austin had contacted Dad earlier that week to recover a honeymoon deposit he claimed to have paid. Dad checked. The charge was on my credit card. Somehow Austin used saved payment info from a shared booking site from an old family trip. That was when everyone understood it wasn't just one theft, it was a pattern. Grandpa stood, retrieved another envelope, and handed it to me. Inside were documents showing the trust fully separated. My portion transferred to a new account under my name only. Tessa's access permanently revoked, with integrity clauses attached to anything she might receive in the future. Grandma said sometimes love needs distance to heal. Tessa stood up and left without a word. Mom started to follow her. Grandpa stopped her and said, "Let her go." That night, Tessa sent me one message. "You think you've won, but you'll see who people really believe." I didn't reply. By morning, Austin's cousin had posted screenshots of texts between Austin and Tessa arguing about who ruined everything. It spread fast. People saw the truth without me saying a word. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It seeped. It showed up in quiet shifts, in who stopped calling, in what went unsaid at family gatherings that never quite happened again. 2 weeks after the screenshots spread, the group chat went silent. My mom stopped posting inspirational quotes. My dad stopped pretending nothing was wrong. And Tessa moved back into their house without announcing it. No fiancé, no wedding, no apology, just the sound of someone who broke something expensive and expected someone else to clean it up. I started getting messages again, but not from Tessa, from my mother. Invitations framed as concern. Dinner, coffee, a voicemail saying she missed how things used to be. Not once did she say the words, "I'm sorry," or ask how it felt to wake up and see $13,000 gone. She talked about healing like it was a mutual responsibility instead of a consequence of betrayal. I didn't respond. Distance was the only thing that made sense. Then the letter came. A white envelope from a law office 3 towns over, no return address. I opened it at my kitchen counter while reheating soup. It was a request for voluntary mediation regarding reimbursement of wedding expenses. According to Tessa, I had offered to fund the wedding as a gift and then reneged after a personal disagreement. She wanted half the costs reimbursed, citing emotional and financial investment. The language was polished, detached, absurd. I read it twice, then put it in a drawer. The next morning I met with a new lawyer. Not the family one, someone I chose. We laid everything out. Receipts, contracts, refunds, screenshots, the trust statements. I sent one email after that, just one sentence, to Tessa and the attorney listed. If I receive another legal notice from you or anyone representing you, the next person you will hear from is a judge. There was no reply. 2 days later, my father showed up at my office without calling. He stood in the lobby holding a plain envelope, looking older than I remembered. My assistant thought he was a client. When I came out, he didn't argue or explain. He handed me the envelope and left. Inside was a handwritten note and a copy of the deed to my parents' house. Tessa's name had been removed. The note said they couldn't undo what happened, but they wouldn't let it keep happening, that I deserved better from them, and they finally saw it. I didn't call him back. I didn't know how to thank someone for doing the right thing years too late. That Sunday, my grandparents invited me over. Just me. No drama, no speeches, tea on the table, a manila folder waiting. Inside were updated documents showing the trust permanently separated, clean and final. No future access, no loopholes. Grandpa handed me another statement, a savings account I didn't know existed, quietly started years ago in my name. He said they'd seen enough to know I might need protection someday, even from family. We sat in silence, and for the first time, the weight of 15 years lifted without ceremony. As I was leaving, Grandma handed me an old photo, a piano recital from when I was 12. Tessa held a trophy. I held a certificate. She smiled. I looked like I wanted to disappear. Grandma said they saw more than they said back then, and now they were saying it. I checked Tessa's social media one last time that night. A blurry sunset, a caption about starting fresh, no wedding, no fiancé, no accountability. I unfollowed her. Then I blocked her. No message, no final word. Silence this time on my terms. A month passed. No reschedule, no apologies, no attempts to fix what couldn't be fixed. Tessa stayed at my parents' house, and even they stopped pretending everything was normal. I didn't see them. I didn't answer calls. And for once, they let me go. Then a message came from someone I didn't expect, Austin's mother. She asked if we could talk. I said no. She asked again, said she wasn't asking for him, just trying to understand what her son had been involved in. Against my better judgment, I answered the next day. What she told me reframed everything. Austin had been lying to both families for years. About money, about jobs, about debts. He told his mother I was obsessed, jealous, trying to sabotage their happiness. She believed him until she found texts on a shared tablet, messages he sent me early in their relationship, flirty, suggestive, asking to meet behind Tessa's back. I had shut him down every time. He never told Tessa that. When the wedding collapsed, he panicked and blamed me for everything. His mother thanked me for not getting involved with him when I had the chance and apologized for believing his version. I didn't hear from Tessa after that, not once. 3 weeks later, my grandparents hosted a quiet dinner. No speeches, no confrontation, just food and breathing room. At the end of the night, Grandpa handed me one final document. The trust was now permanently and legally closed to all parties except me. No revisions, no family votes, no future debates. It was mine. When I got home, I sat in the quiet of my living room and realized what had changed. I hadn't just gotten my money back, I got my voice back, my boundaries, my peace, a clean break from a cycle that taught me to tolerate too much for the sake of keeping things calm. Tessa never got a new wedding date. Austin disappeared. The story faded the way these things always do when there's no one left willing to lie about it, and I stopped being the person who cleaned up after everyone else. For the first time, the silence wasn't punishment. It was relief.